Hello everyone, I'm Adam, or Bill with the Hobo, and this is the Friendship Awesome Gaming Show. This is Guild Wars 2, and I'm bringing you a new series called Interview With. Now this week, or installment, whatever, we've got Leigh, and he is a Mesmer. So, Leigh, tell me
Yes.
about the general Mesmer playstyle.
Okay, first of all, the Mesmer playstyle, first of all, really depends on the equipment you use, because each different weapon that you equip has a different set of abilities which can do different things, like the staff, for example, can create an AoE effect while also giving you boons, whereas I prefer to use the greatsword as well, which is like damage heavy, and it's really a long range kind of thing, so each different weapon can really have different effects. But mainly overall, the Mesmer is an illusionist. So this includes things like creating clones, phantasms, and distorting like reality around you. But there is a main difference between clones and phantoms. Clones being that they look identical to you, so it's kind of like a diversion for enemies. They kind of draw damage off you, but the downside with them is that they don't do much damage. So they're really there just for show and just to kind of take aggro. Whereas phantasms are like they look kind of like ghosts, but they're like they each have different effects for the different weapon skills that you have. So, but they do a lot more damage than the clones would. But you also have the ability to destroy these clones, which you'll have a different set of abilities for every profession using F1 to F4, and every single one from F1, F2, F3, and F4 are all shatter skills, they're called, and they all destroy your illusions, but they all do it in a different way. Like F1 just destroys them and deals damage to nearby foes. F2 would create confusion to nearby enemies, and F3 would daze them, and F4 distorts, which is basically distorting time and space or whatever, and basically you can just evade all attacks while you're in the distorted area. But yeah, that's like the main kind of general playstyle for the Mesmer.
Okay, so that's the playstyle of the Mesmer out of the way. Now, you were mentioning about the staff and the greatsword being what you prefer to use. Now,
Yeah.
could you just kind of talk a little bit like more in depth about those weapons? Kind of tell us what each one will do.
Okay, so for every weapon that you have, there's a different weapon skill set that comes with it. Personally, I prefer the staff, which is pretty good. Like the first skill with the staff is basically just an orb of energy that shoots towards the enemy, and kind of it gives it a whole pile of different random conditions, and it also gives random boons to allies nearby. So it's really helpful. And there's also your standard clone skill and your standard phantasm skill. But there's also chaos armor, which is put up for 5 seconds, and during that time, whenever an enemy attacks you, you give yourself a random boon, and they are damaged with a random condition. And then the final one, which is my favorite skill in the entire game, is Chaos Storm, which is an AoE skill, which you place down, and for every enemy inside it, you deal damage to them, and apply a random condition every second, and it's laid down for about roughly 5 seconds or so. And also, whenever allies are in that area, it will boon them as well. So it's a really useful skill. I also prefer the greatsword as well, which is nothing like you'd expect it to be for a caster anyway, or for any profession, but it's a completely long range weapon. In fact, the first skill even kind of encourages long range, because the further away you are from the enemy, the more damage you do. So it's pretty cool. There's also an illusionary wave spell, which just kind of pushes back all your foes and kind of stuns them. Personally, I prefer to rely on heavy damage spikes and kind of deal heavy amounts of damage to the enemy at one go while trying to put as much conditions and things like that on them. So first of all, I kind of switch to my staff before I start, cast up my clone and phantasm to begin with, and then kind of fire a chaos storm on top of the enemy while I switch to my greatsword, and then start spamming it with like heavy damage and more phantasms. You can have a maximum of 3 clones or phantasms, mix and match at one time.
What kind of utility skills does the Mesmer use?
Okay, so there's obviously your standard healing kind of utility skill, and there's a choice of 4. I reckon, for each class, but 4 for the Mesmer. Um, but yeah, each one will give you different kind of, ways to heal yourself. I mean, like, there's just one which is a basic heal and kind of like a quick recharge. But the mantras are, they're a premeditated skill. You meditate the skill and then you will have it ready to cast instantly as soon as you can. It'll have a shorter recharge time, but there is the meditation period to take into account for. You don't have an instant heal unless you premeditate it. But yeah, there's different kinds of utilities for the Mesmer. There's signets. These are great. They have a passive and an active state. So your passive state is basically you just have the signet in your skill bar, and it'll just provide you with the boon that it says it will provide you with. There's again the mantras, which premeditated, and they do different things. So there's ones which can kind of just deal straight damage to your enemy, which will have a quicker recharge time, and there's ones which will like daze your enemy, or it'll remove some sort of kind of condition from you, obviously, but it's premeditated, so you kind of go in prepared. So it's useful, but it's not very good in a battle situation where you're in the middle of combat and you have to stand still and kind of recharge this freaking mantra thing. There's also different kinds of things like manipulations, which you can like, kind of teleport to different places or absorb projectiles and things like that. And there are glamour skills as well, which are kind of like boons that they'll kind of rip off. There's one which will rip off boons from your foe and cure all allies of conditions in the area. And they kind of reflect projectiles and things like that, so they're just buffs really for the Mesmer. But then finally there's the elites. Now there's really only 2 or 3 maybe elite skills that are available specifically for the Mesmer, and there's one which I really love, which is you get to turn your foe into a Moa bird for 10 seconds. I did try on a major boss in the game earlier and it didn't work, so I think it just works mainly on simple enemies, which kind of takes away from it a bit. I was kind of disappointed with that. There's another one which is specific for the Mesmer, which just gives you quickness and kind of warps time around you. So it's just kind of evasion and kind of speed up your skills. And then the final one would be for the Mesmer would be that you just gain stealth for a short period of time, so you just become invisible. You get all allies. And finally there's traits. So like Guild Wars 1, there's all the same things again, minus fast casting. So there's domination, you have dueling now, there's now chaos as well, there's inspiration and there's illusions. So each one of those different traits will give you different things. Domination increases your power and also increases your condition duration, so depending on the amount of trait points you have in it. So dueling also has increased precision and increased critical damage. Now I don't personally use that. Chaos gives you toughness, so it's harder to kill, more armor basically, and increases your boon duration. We also have inspiration, which just increases your vitality and your healing. And illusion increases your condition damage and your shredding recharge rate. Focus my trait points towards the weapons that I use, so as to like increase the damage and increase like the recharge, well, decrease the recharge time really, so it's more effective. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
So I just want to say a big thank you to Leigh, or Suicide Monkey in game. Feel free to harass him in game if you get it this far. So thanks for watching. Next time will hopefully be a ranger, so I will have more of an input as I'm a ranger. So think happy, be happy. Okay, that's fine. Think happy, be happy, stay happy people, and I will see you guys next time.